I love the idea of using a gun magnet in a car, but I have to tell you, I have concerns both legally and tactically. In this video, we're going to talk about a few of those reasons. If we haven't met yet, my name's Jeff Lauder. I'm an attorney based out of Orlando, Florida. Prior to becoming an attorney, I spent 18 years in law enforcement at 3 different agencies. This week, I just got my award for 15 years of continuous teaching at the police academy. It's official. I'm an old guy. Let's get into it. To answer the legal questions about Florida gun law, we need to turn to Chapter 790 of the Florida State Statutes. I'll put a link to those down below, as well as a PDF document with all the statutes in one place. If we turn to Florida State Statute 790.25, we can see who can carry a firearm and in what circumstances they can carry. These rules apply to everyone, so long as you're not prohibited by law or declared mentally incompetent. If we look to subsection 3L, we can clearly see that Florida allows the open carry of firearms in a private conveyance so long as the weapon is securely encased. Then if we go down to subsection 5, everyone can carry a concealed firearm in their car so long as the firearm is securely encased or not otherwise readily accessible. Don't use that as your benchmark. It's so subjective. Use securely encased. You'll thank me later. Let's turn to the definition of securely encased. For some of you, this may be a refresher. Securely encased means in a glove box, whether or not locked, snapped in a holster, in a gun case, whether or not locked, in a zippered gun case, or in a closed box or container, which requires a lid or a cover to be opened for access. I'm not sure I've ever seen a gun magnet meeting the requirements of securely encased. Let me know down in the comments. Time to move on to tactical considerations. Before you add a new piece of gear to your setup, you need to verify that you're not violating any fundamental principles. The top 2 of those fundamental principles being always treat a firearm as if it's loaded until it's been visually and physically cleared, and always protect the trigger. Let's focus on that second one. In 2020, there was 550,000 drivers involved in 340,000 traffic accidents. How many violent crimes do you think were reported? 75,000. We start there because we're doing a tactical assessment. We have to assess the advantages and disadvantages of this new tool. Since you're 7 times more likely to be involved in an auto accident than you are some type of tactical encounter, the question becomes, during a traffic accident, does the firearm dislodge from a magnet? My answer to that is yes, of course. Anyone who's been involved in any type of serious accident knows how violent those crashes can be. If the firearm dislodges from the magnet, is the trigger still protected? Every magnet I've seen, the answer to that is no. You've got to protect the trigger. That's fundamental principles. How do I ensure I'm protecting the trigger? I guess one option is to keep the firearm unloaded. Keep a loaded magazine in the magazine well with no round in the chamber. That way, if the firearm is dislodged from the magnet, even if the trigger's accidentally pulled, there'll be no harm. But what's the difference between grabbing a loaded gun out of your center console and grabbing your firearm and racking around? I think it's about the same, right? In 1997, when I was a military police officer patrolling the dangerous streets of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, we carried Beretta 92Fs with an M12 holster with a suicide flap. In order to get your gun out, you had to pull down, move the flap out of the way, draw the firearm, rack around, and then engage the target. It's a lot to do. Option 2, find a gun magnet combination that works while your firearm's still inside its holster. Then you could pull it off the magnet in order to get out of your car and leave, or to draw it in a tactical situation. Option 3, gun magnets may be good for other tactical accessories, such as an additional magazine. The next question becomes, do you plan on leaving the firearm in the vehicle, or do you plan on taking it with you as you get in and out? Both present problems. If you leave the firearm in the vehicle, you're looking at the potential risk of theft, or forgetting about it and lending your vehicle out to someone who's not experienced with firearms and doesn't know it's there. If you take it in and out of the car every day, that is a dangerous transition point. Removing that firearm from that magnet and placing it into a holster and then back to the magnet and into the holster multiple times per day, multiple days per week is a pattern for disaster. So if you're going to be doing that, you better have some safety protocols in place to verify that you don't have any negligent discharges. The next question I have is the firearm visible from the outside? That goes back to the theft question. That's a potential issue. And it also goes back to the question of, can law enforcement see the firearm before I'm able to tell them about it. Legally, I think it's fine that you can have the firearm visible. But do I want them to see it? No. I generally don't drive in a manner that would allow myself to get pulled over. But when I do, I don't want my firearm to be brought up. It's a non-issue. But if it does come up, the question becomes, do you have enough confidence in your ability to explain Florida gun law to the extent necessary that the officer lets you go? Or you can be battling this out in court after an arrest. As of right now, gun magnets are a no-go on my end. But if you have a gun magnet meeting these requirements, tell me about it. It must securely encase the firearm. It must be faster than my current setup. It must protect the trigger while on the magnet. It must protect the trigger if dislodged. And it must have a concealment option, maybe like a cloak that hangs over that's the same color as the interior of the car. Put a gun law quiz down in the description.